Welcome back to the Bentonville Beacon podcast. I'm your host, James Bell. This season, we're talking about Bentonville's mobility industry. And this is a special episode because it's the very first episode. And I'm thrilled to have with me today, Cyrus Sigari. Cyrus is an aviator, entrepreneur, and investor. And he has committed his life to extending the benefits of mobility to all of humanity. He's considered one of the world's foremost experts in the future of mobility, especially advanced aerial mobility. Among other roles, Cyrus is co-founder and managing partner of Up Partners. He's chairman of the Future of Mobility Council for the state of Arkansas, and he sits on the board of Game Composites, a Bentonville-based aerobatic aircraft company with incredibly fast and nimble planes, and from what I can tell, are only limited by their pilots. So let's go wheels up. Cyrus, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I look forward to visiting with you and talking about all the great things happening in Northwest Arkansas and mobility and having some fun.
Wonderful. So let's start our climb with an easy question. What should our audience know about Cyrus Sigari, including your passion for flying?
Well, I started flying when I was a little kid. I started when I was 11 years old, and I haven't stopped looking up ever since. And soloed at 16, got my license at 17, was one of the youngest flight instructors in the country at 18. Went to university, studied aerospace engineering, and then worked as an engineer to design airplanes and as a propulsion systems engineer on small jets, and then a flight test engineer and a test pilot, and then a salesperson, and then started selling airplanes about almost 20 years ago. And have had the incredible benefit of flight being a huge part of my life for about 30 years, and flown all around the world in the most incredible vehicles with the most incredible people and the most incredible experiences. Have had crazy, scary experiences, have had some pretty fun experiences, and it's really given me a different perspective around the world. And it's one of the greatest unifiers for humanity, which is why I'm so passionate about it, because it really helps bring people together and gives them the opportunity to have adventure and fellowship. And so I could probably talk for a few hours about all the things around flight that got me pretty fired up, but I know we don't have that much time.
Man, that's awesome. You're living my dream. Cyrus, when you agreed to join me for the podcast, the first thing I thought was, hell yes. And I didn't even realize at the time, embarrassingly, that is your investment mantra. So with that said, can you tell us about Up Partners and why you and your partners started the firm?
Sure. So I'd say hell yes is beyond just our investment mantra. It's really sort of a way of life, of thinking how you make decisions, how you spend your time and energy. And we can talk more about that in a little bit. But Up Partners is an early stage venture capital firm that's investing in technologies that help move people and goods cleaner, faster, safer, lower cost on the ground, in the air, on the sea, and in space. And as a firm, along with my partners, we believe that we're kind of at this really unique point in the existence of humanity, where mobility is changing very rapidly in such a way that it can really increase the quality of life for humanity. And the way we like to think about it is that we're on the precipice of a second internet. The first internet provided very low latency access to information. I want to know something, I know it, and I know it for free practically. The second internet is really the internet of matter. How I want to be somewhere or I want something, it's there. And it's there very inexpensively without tearing up the environment. It's there safely, very quietly. And so if you think about teleportation of ourselves and of goods, maybe not directly through teleportation, but being able to use technologies to be able to move people and goods cleaner, faster, safer, lower cost, it really goes across all different boundaries of mobility, from things on the ground, to things in the sky, to things in space and things in sea. And so our work is investing in the incredible entrepreneurs that are creating this utopian future that we were all promised since we were little kids, like the Jetsons. And it's quite a bit of fun, and it's hugely, there's a lot of activity from a capital perspective going here, from an entrepreneur's perspective, from an academic perspective, and particularly in the region. The region's quickly becoming one of, if not the largest epicenters around this future of mobility that has got me pretty fired up about what's going on in Arkansas and supporting it.
That's great. I can't wait to talk more about that here in a moment. I'd love to hear about some of the companies that you've invested in.
It's a pretty wide range of companies, from literally things on the ground, things in the air, sea, and space. We recently made an investment into a company called Axiom Space. Axiom Space is going to be creating the next space station, the International Space Station, ISNS, that we created in partnership in the United States and a bunch of other countries. That's going to be retired after 2030. And NASA has made a commitment, just like they did to SpaceX, to support SpaceX to launch astronauts up to space, to a private company called Axiom Space, which has won the contract to build this future space station. And so that's a pretty exciting investment. We also made an investment in a company called Beta Technologies, which actually launched their product publicly at an event we co-hosted in Bentonville with Tom and Stuart Walton back in 2018, which is a flying car. It's a vehicle that can take off vertically, can fly horizontally, like a helicopter, like an airplane, but it's fully electric, and it's almost free to fly. And just a few weeks ago, that vehicle flew to Bentonville from Burlington, Vermont, and it made 7 stops, 250 nautical miles at a time. And each stop only cost about $17 worth of electricity to fuel it up. So it's practically free to fly, like I said earlier. And the largest customers for a company like that are logistics companies. So like UPS is using Beta Technologies vehicle for moving packages. United Therapeutics, a healthcare company that's moving organs, is going to be using it. Another really cool, interesting company is a company called Voyant Photonics, which is developing something called silicon photonics-based LiDAR. So LiDAR is laser-based sensors to figure out where the physical world is. If you see those autonomous cars with the spinny things on top, those are LiDAR sensors. And generally, they're very expensive, they're very big, and they can't really fit anywhere that looks normal. And this company, Voyant Photonics, has developed technology where they can print the entire sensor onto a chip that fits on your fingertip and uses almost no electricity, and it's very, very efficient. So, if you think about investing in technology companies around moving people and goods on the ground, air, sea, and space, you really need to know where things are around you. And so that's just an example. But we've invested in a lot of companies. There's just a few that kind of jump out that are pretty exciting and fun.
Man, that's so cool. I feel like these things, when I was a child, we thought that they might be in the future. But as I got older, it didn't seem that they were coming. And then all of a sudden, here they all seem to be. I know it took a lot more work than this all of a sudden, that people have really been working toward it. As a recovering entrepreneur turned economic developer, I don't know if that you ever recover as an entrepreneur, but I have to ask, what are the top 2 to 3 things that you look for in a deal or in founders?
Well, I think there's a few things. Let's talk about the founder part of it first. Being an entrepreneur is really, 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 really hard. Something like, I don't have the exact statistic, but on the order of 95% of companies fail within the first 5 years. And having started a few businesses and definitely taken my lumps along the way, I understand it. It's you got to have a combination of grit, of being too stupid to know when to stop. Because you can keep plowing through a wall, and a lot of other folks may have told you to stop, and not stopping may have been what got you through that wall and allowed you to survive. Being very quick on your feet to pivot in difficult circumstances. I mean, look at the environment in the last 2 years. You went from entrepreneurs having to deal with, pandemic, the world shutting down, and then coming back to life, and then dealing with, a war in Ukraine that's kind of had its impact, and then inflation, and then now a recession. Like, we've had a lifetime's worth of pivots required for entrepreneurs in the last 24 months. And so I think today's entrepreneur needs to really be really, really quick on their feet and be able to kind of see where things are going and be able to make those sorts of pivots. So grit is probably the number one thing. That's not a thing you can really teach. That's something somebody's got to have either built into them and through a lot of experience build. On the topic of the types of deals, we generally look for technologies that meet our thesis of transforming the moving world, which goes back to that moving people and goods cleaner, faster, safer, lower cost across all these different domains. But first, is it like technically possible? Like, is physics a block to the way of this happening? If the answer is no, then that conversation stops pretty quick. And you'd be surprised. We see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies come across our desk, and literally thousands of companies on an annual basis. I think we'll be at like 4,000 companies to look at this year. A lot of them are like, just physics won't do it. And as an engineer and a team of partners that understand physics and engineering, you're like, okay, that makes it pretty simple. Then if physics does it, are we on a technology pathway that will allow it to be realized in a rational economic term? Okay, so as investors, our job is to take capital, put it into something, and then get back more of it in a certain timeline. For us, it's about 10 years. We're making about 10-year bets. So are we in the right time for technology? So pretty much anything we can imagine likely will happen in the future, which is a pretty crazy thought. Yeah. Anything you can imagine will likely happen in the future. And but just, are you smart enough to pick when it's going to happen to be able to invest in those technologies? Then it's really, is it needed? Like, is this something that's going to make the world a better place? Truthfully, I'm not all that particularly interested in investing in another social media company or something that's just trying to steal people's eyeballs to sell them something. Deeply in our hearts, we want to be supporting entrepreneurs and companies that are creating technologies that are increasing the quality of life for humanity. And that's hard enough, trying to be able to do all that, amongst a few things. So as an entrepreneur, somebody that's got a lot of grit, that can blow through, concrete walls, that's coming up with a technology that physics will physically allow to happen, that can be realized in a timeline that's rational. And then ultimately, is this the thing that people need? And then you can start to build sort of things around that. But we literally invest in about 1% of the companies that we look at. And there's quite a few things beyond that, but just those are a handful of things that we think about.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing those. I cut my teeth in the medical device and health tech industry, and I see a lot of similarities between the reasons why one should invest in a company in that space and in this space. Up Partners is, of course, the host of the Up Summit, which I'll let you describe. But first, I want to thank you for having all the world's mobility toys here a few weeks ago. Took my family out to the community day for Up Summit, and we had a blast. I felt like it was stepping right into an episode of the Jetsons. It really felt like that. It was absolutely amazing.
Oh, I'm so happy you and your family were able to come out to that. And frankly, the Up Summit we've been doing it for a few years. We started our first one in 2017. The one we just did in Bentonville a few weeks ago was different for a few reasons. And the number one reason that it was different that I was so excited about was our community day, which was to be able to have, an entire community come out and see these incredible technologies, these Jetsons-like vehicles and these autonomous cars and trucks and planes, and to see little kids, their eyes light up, and to see them realize, hey, they could be a part of helping create this new future. That if we just did the community day, I would have been happy, because we don't know what child we inspire that could go be the next Elon Musk. And so that was a lot of fun. Moving past the community day, what really helped sort of anchor the ability to do that was the core Up Summit, which is a gathering of the global leaders in the future of transportation and logistics. And so we had about 250 people fly in from around the world. We had about 40 countries represented, about $1 trillion of investable capital, some of the largest companies in the world, from Boeing, Airbus, Chevron, to folks from Ford and Toyota, and really a tremendous amount of entrepreneurs developing technologies in this space. And really, as we kind of been building this event for the last 5 years, we've kind of taken some inspiration from a number of other events and put them together. So it's turned into a bit of Davos meets CES meets TED meets Burning Man meets the Oshkosh Air Show, all kind of wrapped around this incredible town of Bentonville, Arkansas. And it rotates between Bentonville, Arkansas, and Dallas, and every year it kind of goes back and forth. And it was pretty incredible. We had close to 1,000 articles written about the event, about 20 press releases of companies that were there. They were announcing big things. Walmart had a bunch of pretty significant announcements, particularly their commitment to zero emission ground transportation strategy with electric trucks and hydrogen trucks. We had a CEO of Alaska Airlines there with his they flew in a 737 to do flybys the town of Bentonville, which I'm not sure if you got to see that on Monday. But it was great, and I think it really helped remind folks and cement the idea that Northwest Arkansas and that region moves more things than any other region in the world. Between Walmart, J.B. Hunt, Tyson, Dassault Falcon Jet, based down in Little Rock. The number one export out of the state of Arkansas is not chicken. It's jets, it's aerospace. And there's a deep, rich history and culture around aerospace in Arkansas, and sort of the surrounding area with Oklahoma and Tennessee and Missouri and Louisiana, kind of this heartland region. There's not a better place in the world to kind of celebrate this future of mobility. And really the future of mobility starts with moving things better before you start moving people better. And if you just take a story, we go back to the beginning of the aviation industry, the first industry that took off after the Wright brothers took off was the airmail industry. It was airmail that proved out navigation routes, manufacturing technology, pilot training, all that kind of nitty gritty stuff. You need to build an ecosystem in an industry. And once, the airmail got to where we're supposed to get to, like we're over and over again without the planes getting lost or crashing, that's when people got comfortable to get on these vehicles and go fly around. And I think we're seeing a similar sort of repeat of history now with this new world of delivery drones and flying cars and autonomous cars and electric cars and all these just incredible toys that, we get to play with on a daily basis.
That's incredible. I grew up in Arkansas and I moved away for quite a period of time. And coming back to Bentonville, I grew up in Central Arkansas. Coming back to Bentonville was my coming home. At the time when I left, I wasn't planning on coming back. It was the early 90s. The logo on the license plate said the land of opportunity. I'm afraid that there really wasn't any. And so if you were a young person at that time, you had to leave. And I'm so excited to be back and see all these amazing things that are happening here in different industries, and in particular in the space of mobility. This is just, it's incredible.
It's awesome. And I've been coming to Arkansas for the better part of the last 10 years and have a home there. And I've had an opportunity to kind of see the region transform in front of my eyes. And it's just been incredible. The energy, the collaboration, the speed in which the companies and government and academia and entrepreneurs are all moving in this direction. Clearly there were some tailwinds coming out of COVID for the region, for people to kind of discover what's going on in Northwest Arkansas. And it's just great. So I'm sure your state's happy to have you back.
I have to ask, and kind of ripping right off from the community day for Up Summit. Dude, where's my flying car? When can I get it? Is it realistic to expect affordable flying cars, anytime in my lifetime, or is my son going to be the benefactor?
Yeah, it's kind of already happening. And when I say happening, I have to kind of delineate the use cases. Okay. So the use case of you literally walking out of your house to get into your flying car to go zip around the other side of town, that's probably 10 years at best case. Okay. So I think you're definitely going to see that in your lifetime. And I'll tell you, there's a few reasons why I think that'll happen. 10 to 20 years from now, I think in the 2030s, that's a very realistic possibility. Now, in the near term, it's already happening, but in much different types of use cases like entertainment. There's a company called Lift Aircraft, which, you and I grew up going to the go-kart track to go zip around. Well, now there's a flying car track where you get in this little flying car. It's got a bunch of rotors on the top, and it's really easy to fly. And it's got a digital sort of boundary where how far it can go. You can't fly for very long, maybe 10, 15 minutes because it's fully electric. But you give an opportunity for anybody to be a pilot. And that's like happening now, which, never would have had the opportunity to go solo a helicopter, an airplane with zero training before this. So I think there's a continuum of what this looks like. You're going to find these ad hoc, cool, interesting, rural sort of opportunities for people to learn and play. And then ultimately, you're going to get to this place of like a mass transformation in transportation. So, some of the largest automotive companies in the world, Honda, Toyota, just about every one of them out there has made some sort of bet. Hyundai, and all of the big players, they're all sort of pretty publicly saying, "Hey, we're 2030 and beyond. It's going to take a lot of work for us to get everything built, from the technology, from certification to airspace management and all those sorts of things." But you're going to keep seeing more and more of these sorts of vehicles in the public discourse to get people fired up and excited about this future. And I'm really fired up to get to be a part of that. Just a little itty bitty bit part of it.
Well, that's thrilling. I'm really excited to hear that. I honestly didn't expect to hear that it was that close. So that's very exciting. One area that excites me is the prospect of air taxis. And I can think of a couple of use cases locally. If I'm an innovator, or maybe if I work for our local electric vehicle maker, Canoe, if I want to leave the headquarters in Bentonville and jump down to Fayetteville, I could hop in my car and drive there, or maybe I could be there in a few minutes and still also have time that day to zip over to Pryor, Oklahoma and check out their high volume production facility and help with some stuff there and get back in time for dinner and spend time with my family. And it feels like even across the region, whether it's here or a few minutes down the road in Fayetteville or over to Tulsa, Springfield, Joplin, that we can sort of expand the footprint of our region and ignore the sort of the political or state boundaries and really have a bunch of innovation districts, so to speak, that we can bounce around between. How does that resonate with you, and what are your thoughts on it?
It's fully aligned with how we see the world. Mobility, in particular in this case, aerial mobility you're talking about, makes the world a lot smaller. And it brings people together, and it makes borders disappear. And this goes back to like the human reason why I'm really fired up about this, because I think it can really help make the world a better place for people to better understand each other and experience different cultures and different regions and different economies. And if you can make it, low cost, safe, like completely democratized for the betterment of everyone. That's not a 30-year aviator with lots of it's very expensive to learn how to fly a traditional helicopter airplane. This is a really exciting future, and it's not a technology problem. Back to like the physics thing. All the physics problems are solved here, and actually the technologies are pretty well solved. It's really primarily certification and getting to enough scale where you can get costs down and solving some big infrastructure stuff like airspace management and recharging, because you really do have to base this entire future off of an electric future. That doing it with gas powered stuff is probably not going to be the best way to go about doing it. Yeah,
I'm thinking about when I was growing up, of all things, I wanted to be an astronaut. I grew up in the era of watching the space shuttles fly, and wanted to be an astronaut. And for one reason or another, starting with, in those days, you had to, the pathway, I believe, was you basically became a military pilot and had to be one of the best of the best. And then you might have a shot at becoming an astronaut. Turned out I didn't have 20/20 vision. And so that pathway was blocked for me. But even beyond that, I didn't grow up wealthy. And so thinking about the opportunity to fly at all, even if I made it through the pathway of becoming a pilot, just the cost to do it was prohibitive. And it really does seem like this is going to lower those barriers to, democratize, if you will, transportation and aviation for everybody.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, bud. I too wanted to be an astronaut, and I hope that I hope that we both get to be one with all the new crazy cool stuff that's happening in space. It's not out of the realm of possibility for you to go to space in your lifetime.
That would be amazing. Hey, in February, Governor Hutchinson announced the State of Arkansas Council on Future Mobility. And of course, he named you as the chair of that council. So first of all, congratulations. And
Thank you.
Yeah, second, thank you for your service to the people of Arkansas. And as we've been talking about, really here to humanity. What's the role of the council, and what does this mean for our state? We've touched on a little bit on it, but what does it mean for our state as you really the mobility leader of the future?
Yeah, well, first off, my big gratitude for Governor Hutchinson and his vision and seeing all of the stuff that's happening in mobility and recognizing as the chief executive of the state that if you really want the state and its citizens and its companies and its students and all the entire ecosystem to benefit from this incredible future, you need to get all the leaders together and start thinking about how do we prepare the state to be in a position to become the epicenter in the future of how people and goods move ground, air, sea, and space. And so when he announced the council, he, in addition to myself, selected leaders from Walmart, from J.B. Hunt, from the utility companies, from policymakers from the University of Arkansas, to you name it. Everybody that could have some hand in this future, from academia, from policy to investment to large corporates that had exposure here already, brought us together and said, hey, you all have until November to tell me and my team what we need to do to knock down barriers, to make it easy for companies to come here, to operate here, to figure out ways for us to make investments into transformative companies in the space, to prepare our workforce to be ready to take advantage of this opportunity, to create an academic framework for students, both not only in University of Arkansas, but in community colleges and throughout the state, to be a part of this revolution. And the state of Arkansas has punched above its weight for quite some time, be it from a business perspective or political perspective. And I think launching this really first in the nation sort of thing, no other nation has something, no other state in the nation has this kind of council put together. You have states that are kind of leaders in different areas of mobility, but you don't have one that's really said, hey, we're going to bring them all together into one strategy. Because the state's already doing leadership things in the different parts of the strategy. So for instance, you have drone delivery happening with Walmart in Pea Ridge right now, and that's getting ready to be launched throughout the state. You got autonomous trucks driving around the roads in Arkansas right now with Gatic. You've got J.B. Hunt that's doing trials with Waymo, with Google's company, a number of other partners. You've got Walmart's partnership with Cruise, fully autonomous AV company. You've got Game Composites building airplanes in Arkansas along with Dassault Falcon Jet. You have the entire defense aerospace network down in southern Arkansas. So you have all this stuff that's happening, and really there had never been sort of a packaging of the total story. And this really goes down to one of the bigger parts of the work for the council is storytelling. It does no good if you're doing a lot of good work, but people don't know about it.
Right.
And getting inspired by it and sharing, all the possible outcomes from doing that good work. And so we're having a blast. It's a lot of fun, and we've already had some pretty cool wins that we'll be announcing here in the not so distant future. That I'll tell you, when I started this, I didn't expect some of these outcomes to happen as quickly as they're happening. And it also goes to the speed that a state like Arkansas can move. I mean, when we have things that come up, within minutes, we've got all the decision makers on a call and say, yes, let's do it, let's move. This is really my first time getting a chance to work in any sort of government related thing. I've been pretty much focused on private sector and always had somewhat of a, kind of squinty-eyed look towards doing any government, because you don't always hear great things about working in and around government. But man, this has been an incredible experience, hopeful experience. Again, a testament to Governor Hutchinson's administration and the folks he's got around him to help everybody move real quick.
You bet. Yeah, I think Governor Hutchinson has done an amazing job for economic development here in Arkansas. I mean, this guy, it's not unlike him to pick up the phone to call the CEO of a 30-person company and say, hey, here's why you should be here. I don't think you would find that anywhere else. And to be really forward-thinking and see this opportunity to make Arkansas the epicenter for mobility, I think it's really brilliant. I mean, it was under his administration that we also became the first state to require something that, frankly, I thought before it happened was a requirement in places, and that is that every kid has to take some kind of computer course to graduate from high school. Arkansas was the first state to do it. hearing all the things that you just mentioned in the aviation industry and other parts of mobility, I don't think most people outside the state of Arkansas would have a clue that that's happening here. And so I'm looking forward to the stories that your council is able to bring forward, and the work that you're doing and the wins that we're about to see here in the near future.
I want to hit on that computer engineering thing
Sure.
you just mentioned. Governor Hutchinson's also the chairman of the National Governors Association. So he's the elected governor of governors by all 50 of the other, both red and blue governors. And his number one nationwide strategy policy thing on his agenda as the chairman of this organization is proliferating STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math. And as an engineer, as an entrepreneur, as an investor, in the world that we're living in, from a competitive nature with China and Russia and Europe and all that kind of stuff, if we don't get this country on the right direction as it relates to educating our children around, in my opinion, things that really matter, like the sort of stuff we're talking about, and less being focused on, social media and just pulling eyeballs away from people to go sell stuff versus go build stuff and create a future that's worth getting up and excited about. That's pretty darn important. And I'm really, really excited to see the outcome of those set of initiatives that are happening start first locally in the region, then throughout the state, throughout the country, and perhaps for the rest of the world. And it's important stuff.
You bet. Yeah. I mean, I remember myself in high school taking, I took basic programming, COBOL programming, which was already far outdated by the time I took it. But at least it was a step in a direction, right? And as I grew up and really, for a period, I almost got the sense that there wasn't much to inspire folks anymore in that direction. But now with all of this, there absolutely is. I think a child or a student in school or early in college even can see very directly that there's an opportunity in the future if they simply go this path. And it's an amazing opportunity. Well, so just yesterday, so today is, since this episode will come out in almost a couple of weeks from now, today's July 7th, 2022. Just yesterday, the University of Arkansas announced a planning grant that they'll use to support the university's vision of becoming the preeminent university in smart mobility. Targeted areas include, as you know, next generation vehicles, unmanned aerial mobility, artificial intelligence for smart mobility. With all the things that you mentioned, and just thinking about this area with, both zipline and drone up, delivering for a year now for Walmart locally, with Walmart and Gaddick moving autonomous trucks without a safety driver in it going on. I think we're in the 25th month. That was a world first, and all the other things that you've described that are happening. In my view, Arkansas and now Bentonville and Northwest Arkansas has staked its claim as ground zero, really the epicenter for the future of mobility and how we move goods and people and perhaps services. You've talked a lot about that, but is there anything else you would like to add?
Well, I mean, first off, this specific news about what our university is doing with the support of the Walton Family Foundation, that's really backing that entire initiative, is exactly the kind of stuff that we would hope would come out of bringing everybody together to talk about what are the different elements around building an ecosystem that can create a flywheel that will self-sustain itself and help create, Stuart Walton recently shared this line of, really help Bentonville and the region tell its best story. And this is one of the best stories in the region. And how do you amplify that story and enhance that story and figure out what are the things that can make it more impactful, again, not just in the region, not just in the state, not just in the country, but the whole world, and have a place where people look up to and be inspired and go like, hey, if I want to, Silicon Valley is no longer a place. It's a headset. It's a headset around innovation and disrupting what was in the past for a greater future. And, it's no longer a thing that is completely monopolized by the coasts anymore. The heartland is really getting the opportunity to be a home for innovation and technology and supporting, humanity in a very different way. And really, again, it starts with education as one of the most important things. And, it's not always the sexiest thing to talk about, but if you're thinking in 10-year increments, it's like the most important thing to be talking about.
Yes.
And so this announcement, I was just so thrilled and excited to see, because it just keeps the flywheel spinning faster and faster.
It does. I realize, and we've talked a lot about this, but I'd love to hear more. I realize you have your responsibility as the leader of the state council, but how should mobility leaders be thinking about having a presence here in Bentonville to take advantage of what's happening here?
One of the biggest drivers being around in Bentonville right now is working with the largest companies in the area to support their ultimate goal, which is get products to customers as quick, as most inexpensively as possible to increase the quality of life. So anybody that's in the world of moving goods, primarily cleaner, faster, safer, lower cost, on the ground, air, sea, and maybe one day space for Walmart in this particular case. There's a pretty big customer that's sitting around the corner there that's probably pretty interested to hear about what you're developing. And I really, my hat's off to Walmart for, being so forward thinking. Everybody thinks about large, big companies being sort of stodgy and like you can't get them to, think differently and move because they're giant, aircraft carriers that don't really turn on a dime, if you will. Mm-hmm. But man, I have been so impressed with the rate at which Walmart, both in the US and internationally, has been adopting technologies that you wouldn't have maybe called a few years ago. Because they're willing to take risks, they're willing to learn, and they're willing to go out there and stake a claim. And many people look at Amazon as kind of the sexy technology company as it relates to e-commerce and food delivery and all that. But I'll tell you, you'd be hard pressed to convince me that they're keeping up with Walmart right now. A lot of the things that Walmart's doing, and in many ways beating the pants off them. Now, not that there's any competition in the region about this kind of stuff, but it's just cool to see that there's a different story about what Walmart is today versus what it maybe was 10 or 20 years ago. And it's cool to see. So anyways, this goes back to your question. It's having this ecosystem of these large companies like JB Hunt, Tyson, Walmart, Canoe being there, and now the university is really supporting it to find ways to partner. Then it comes to like companies that are not directly related that want to be there and take advantage of the ecosystem, and how do they thrive and how do they build? And investment's a big part of that. And so, we as investors are particularly keen and interested in companies that want to be in Northwest Arkansas and that have an interest in this space, and always willing to take a call. So if there's anybody on your podcast listening that wants to talk about that, you've got a friendly ear waiting here to hear your pitch. And there's a number of other investors in the area. So this is all about, again, building that ecosystem that pulls people in, have a high quality of life, have a low cost of living, have good customer base, have lots of fun things to do outdoors, and kind of work together to make the world a better place.
That's great. So there's your open invitation. And since you said it, what's the best way to reach you, Cyrus?
Best way is to email me. It's cyrus@up.partners. It's pretty simple.
Pretty straightforward. Hey, if somebody out there wants to get involved in where this mobility thing is going, I mean, say it's a student of any age, how do they get started?
Well, that's part of what we're going to be doing with the council in our final report in November, is be able to discreetly answer that question. And I'm happy you asked the question, because one of the most surprising things that happened after the governor announced the formation of this council were the LinkedIn messages I got. And they were not from the people I thought I'd be getting LinkedIn messages from. They were from school teachers. They were from college students. It's from the Arkansas Tesla Club president. And every one of them going, wow, this is so cool. How do we get involved and be a part of this? Dozens of, maybe not hundreds of these types of messages. And it really took me back. I was like, wow, I did not expect. I thought maybe it was all the entrepreneurs, the corporates. No, it's the people that actually benefit from this stuff that were the ones that were reaching out. And that was kind of a signal that, hey, we're on the right track. Yeah. That this is something that's really touching the hearts and minds of people and giving them a hope about it, and a more clean, a more equitable, more beautiful world for us to collectively live in. And it goes to what's really special about Arkansas that I've come to really appreciate over the last 10 years is that there's really a feeling of community. And I've traveled in just about every nook and cranny of this country, all the pretty places and a lot of the not so pretty places. And I can't tell you, I found a place that feels more like a community than I have felt in Arkansas. There's a certain pride of taking care of your neighbor. There's a fellowship. There's a humanistic thing of being outside and being playful and doing stuff that some people might think is crazy, and going out and going after it. And that's inspiring. And I'm excited to get to benefit from it and maybe be a contributor to it.
It's truly that way. One of the many reasons, or one of the primary reasons that I chose to bring my family here, we had to be part of it. We were looking for that last place to stop and a place to, raise our family and have a place that, our son, and if we have other children, can, even if they decide to leave for whatever reason, that they'll be more than happy to come back to. The level of opportunity here now is just mind blowing to me. It's remarkable. As we come in,
I want to hit on that point real quick. Alice Walton was at our event, the Up Summit, and she effectively hosted us at Crystal Bridges. Mm-hmm. Crystal Bridges really has never been shut down before, like since the beginning of its existence. And it was shut down for this Up Summit. So it was a pretty big honor to get to have, the entire facility used for what we're doing. And Alice called herself a comebacker because she had left to Dallas and then mm-hmm. came back to Arkansas and was talking about that story of having a place that you want to come back to and help build. And I thought I never heard that term before, but you reminded me through your own personal journey that you're not the only one, and maybe not your kids as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking real hard as an economic developer about how to tap into that. I've also heard them folks in that group referred to as boomerangs. And maybe I need to just start going out and finding all the innovative boomerangs and bringing them home. Seems like the right thing to do. Back to Bentonville for a moment as we start bringing this thing in for a landing. Will you tell me a story that is, I'll call it a story or a moment that you've had here that's a sort of that you would label #because Bentonville? And I'll give you a really simple moment for me. It's the first time I saw a bike detour sign. Never seen that anywhere else before.
That's cute. I've got one story that resonates. So a couple of years ago, I was in town, and I had to fly out, I think, back to California, and I was going through XNA, and I was late for my flight, and I had a rental car, and I was ripping through, kind of on my way through the rental car facility, and I kind of parked real quick, grabbed my bag, and I'm doing my 100-meter dash to the security gate to go through the X-ray machine. And I put my bag through the X-ray machine and I pull out all the stuff out of my pocket, and I realize I've got the car keys to the rental car in my hand. And I can see the plane's about to leave, right out that way in front of me. And my bag has already gone through the X-ray, and I'm kind of confused. I'm like, wait a minute, what do I do? Do I go this way? My bag's over there. And I'm this moment of trying to calculate how I should deal with this. And all of a sudden I hear somebody say, which rental car company? So I kind of looked up a bit confused, and it was the TSA agent. I said, excuse me? He said, looks like you're late for your flight. You left your rental car keys here. Which rental car company? I said, Enterprise. He says, give them me, I'll take care of it for you.
Wow.
And that was kind of a moment where I was like, they make them a little different out here. And so, and I actually asked him, I said, hey, who's your boss? I'd like to tell him about what you did. He said, I'm the boss. And I said, well, it shows why you're the boss. And so that was a really special sort of humanistic part of being in that area that I'll never forget.
Wow, that's incredible. Taxiing down the runway. Last question. Actually, I have two questions for you. Let me ask this one first. What should I have asked you that I did not?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. I don't know, man. I mean, I think, with all the challenging things that are happening in the world, and I don't need to go list them out because we get bombarded with information through the media and whatnot. It's easy to wake up and not be particularly hopeful about the direction humanity's going, direction the West is going, the direction US is going, all that sort of stuff. And, when we think about what our individual responsibility is in that, we all have a lot of actual capacity to change that story by sort of just taking personal responsibility about what can I do to make this world a little bit more bright and a little bit more hopeful. And you get enough people thinking that way and acting that way, a bunch of little candles will turn into a really, really big flame. And I think people are really digging deep for hope and something to get excited about when they wake up in the morning, that there will be a better world for when their kids grow up, and that it's worth working a little extra hard to go do that. And so it's not really a question, but really sort of a philosophy. And back to that hell yes thing, that to me is a hell yes. How can we keep our minds pure and inspired so that we can inspire those around us? And you do that enough times, history shows generally good things will happen.
And that's cool. I feel like you are delivering inspiration and hope to people. Last question. What's the most important thing that you've learned this year?
The power of community. Hands down. This is a new experience for me, but I'm 40 years old. I just turned 40 this year. And this experience with the Mobility Council, with Arkansas, with Bentonville, with the university, with Walmart, with JB Hunt, with all, realizing the power of community. When you get people all kind of seeing a vision and a vision that they want to get behind, how powerful that is. And it inspires me. Like the Tesla Club of Arkansas guy, and the school teacher, and the college student, whatever, everybody going, let's go change the world and do it together as a community. And it's been really inspiring. It makes it a lot easier for me to spend a little extra time working on, something that's not my day job. Mm-hmm. I have bosses, they're my investors, that I need to give back a lot more money than they gave us. But this all sort of supports, this sort of idea of transforming the moving world. So I think I'm excited to learn more of those types of lessons that were not expected lessons, and give people an opportunity to participate in it. So I think that's what really the next sort of lesson is. Okay, you get people inspired to want to go do something. Now give them things to go do, and allow them to be successful and get out of their way.
That's awesome. Well, you're doing that. Thank you, Cyrus, so much for coming on the Bentonville Beacon podcast. I really appreciate it. My goodness. I think I'm going to go listen to this podcast about 15 times after it's ready. There's lots of jewels in there. And, I appreciate you sort of giving us a glimpse into your life, into the things that you're doing, and where this world is really going. Hey, thank you to the Bentonville Beacon audience. If you like what you heard, hit subscribe on your favorite podcast player and Visit BentonvilleEconomicDevelopment.com for more of these episodes, both the first season, which is about Bentonville's outdoor recreation industry, and of course this new season with mobility. Come learn about Bentonville and its leaders and its businesses and Northwest Arkansas, and why this is a place where you get more of what you want and less of what you don't. See you next time.